Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining today, everybody, for another whiskey review. Today, we get into another release from Dixon Deadman, and this one's going to be the 2XO, two times oak, the Tribute Blend. So, this is a Kentucky straight bourbon, ultimately in a double oaked situation. And this comes in at 104 proof and around $98. So, we're going to get into this one, break it down, go through all the flavor notes, and then get into the final scores and recommendations. So, thank you for joining me today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. All right. So, as you can see, I spent a bit of time with this one already. Spoiler alert, I do like this one quite a bit. Now, one thing we will talk about in the conclusions, though, is this is now the third batch in this series. The first one was called the Phoenix Blend, the next one was called the Innkeeper's Blend, and now we've got the Tribute Blend. And what it says on the back here is that the Tribute Blend is the third release in the ongoing small batch blend series from 2XO, two times oak. Each release is unique, created from a blending of select stocks of its finest barrels, and using and then crafted using his double barreling process. So that's the description of it there. It's the uniqueness that I'll be kind of poking at a little bit towards the end. I do think these are getting better over time, but are they actually distinct enough to keep me interested in going on with the series? That'll be what we talk about in the conclusion. So let's get into the nose, let's get into the palate, and let's break this one down a little bit. Cheers, everybody. Thank you for joining me this far. Ooh, ooh. Hmm. There's a particular note that's just leaping out at me right now. Ah, see, that's a really fun nose. I enjoy the nose quite a bit. It's essentially like a if you take a box of chocolates and you got the chocolate uh, cherry cordials. So you got the chocolate on the outside, you got the vanilla cream, and then you got a cherry in the middle. But also sprinkle some flakes of a dried coconut on top of a cherry cordial, and that is ultimately what I feel like I'm smelling. And then some point in the process, you like smash that cherry cordial with a hammer and really release that vanilla cream to be even more fragrant. Now, you could pick this one apart for a little bit here. Um, the longer I sit with it and the more I try to explore the different angles, I ultimately then start getting into some fruits, which I would describe as uh, cinnamon soaked pears. And there's a brightness in the back there that I keep searching for, almost like some fresh mint just hanging out there, real subtle in the background. Ah, it's a fun nose, though. Let's get into the palate. Hmm. Hmm. Ah, it's really the most refined of the series. Up front, the mouthfeel is really impeccable, especially for 104 proof. That's actually been one standout quality of every release that's come out of 2XO right now. He is really keeping good care of the mouthfeel, and I really appreciate that because that really helps the flavors carry on through. The initial flavors that I get are quite delightful. Just this nice combination of being like sweet and spicy. The The vanilla cream almost comes through immediately, that slight cherry syrup. So kind of similar to what I was saying on the nose with that cherry cordial. But then there's just this layer of like cinnamon and the baking spices. So more or less, a lot of the things that the nose was hinting at then hits you just right away, just right off the bat. Let's get into mid palate. Mm. Ah, lovely. A lot of that sweetness drifts into a butterscotch alongside of the chocolate. And the chocolate does this interesting dance to me with the cinnamon, almost like a Mexican hot chocolate. I think that's the best thing that I can kind of equate the mid palate to is a Mexican hot chocolate. The cherry is, of course, there. The cherry is just kind of omnipresent, which ultimately leads me back to that cherry cordial if I think about it too much. Let's get into the finish. Ah, man. Ah, the cherry cordial on the finish. Oh, the finish is really, really good. Um, that mintiness comes back on the finish. So I swear that's there. It's coupled with just a lot of bright vanilla on the back end. Um, It does have that kinda charred marshmallow sensation, but it's more like a charred, vanilla fluff than necessarily a straight marshmallow like you're doing s'mores. And, man, apple and cinnamon. That's what I'm kinda getting right now at the tail end. Quite good for the fall as I kinda go through all of those type of flavors. Very, very delightful. One more sip. Ah, man. Just so much candy, you get the fruits. Oh, man, the double oak gives it that charred marshmallow. Ah, it's pretty decadent, really. I really like that. So let's get to the scores here. So here on the channel, we do break things down in a three-tier scoring system. We have flavor scores, experience scores, and then a value score. Whole bunch of metrics behind each of these components, but this is just an easy way to sum everything up. And as you can tell with the smile on my face and all of the yummy noises I'm making, yeah, I like the flavor. It did have the most points on a lot of those flavor metrics. Oh, that's really, really good. Um, Experience score, the really just kind of gave it eights across the board. It didn't have any necessarily straight standout experience. I called out the mouthfeel. I thought that was good. It's got good depth of the flavors for the most part, but nothing that led me to give it more of that exceptional 9 out of 10 on any of the individual components. So it kind of just stayed there at the 80. And then the value did bring it down a little bit. Being it's $100, I've kind of crept down on my value score with each release of this. I think it's really, really good. But for $100 and thinking about the other things I can get for $100, it does make it harder and harder to comparatively recommend it potentially. Now, as you can see here, I am pretty impressed with the pour itself, but I'd be more comfortable with it around 80, something around there versus all the way up at 100. Irregardless of all of that, it ultimately ends up at an 81 out of 100, which is a very good pour. The recommend, I gave it a 7 out of 10. If you have bought 2XO in the past, the one thing I do think about, and this goes into the do I plan to buy another, I did do a comparison of all of them side by side, and I must say they are getting better. They are the Phoenix batch compared to the Innkeeper's batch compared to this batch. They are progressively getting better about a half step, but ultimately kind of give a lot of the same experience. And maybe that's just the nature of having a double oaked product that can make everything ultimately have that same baseline feel to it. So now that I have 3 bottles of this, all of which are around 75% full, you can see where I am on this one. Do I plan to buy another? I don't know if I'm going to go leap at the 4th one in the batch, in the series at this point. Maybe I'll wait for reviews, wait for other people to say things. But ultimately, I love these releases coming from Dixon Deadman. I've had a good time with them. Very, very flavorful. You can tell that I enjoyed the flavors. But do I need any more bottles now that I have all 3? It's up for debate. Maybe something happens on the next one that really makes it stand out. I'll keep a ear to the ground. I'm open to it. But ultimately, if it kind of gives the same thing, then I'm good. And I'll finish these. And then once I'm done with these, maybe I'll hop onto the blend that comes after that. So that's going to be my strategy for 2XO for now. But if you are going to buy only one and you have the options of all the releases on the shelves, you definitely want the Tribute Blend. So thank you for joining me today, Whiskey Friends. Let me know in the comments if you've had this release, what you thought about it, and what you think of the 2XO brand thus far. And then until next time, I'll see you on the next whiskey review. Goodbye, everybody.
Jeff, just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello